now, for your listening pleasure, here's Pulizzi and Rose, covering the week of media, marketing, and digital content news. This Old Marketing. Take it away, boys.
Well, hello, my friends. This is Robert Rose, and welcome to episode number 382 of This Old Marketing for Friday, June 30th, 2023. That's right. It's almost the 4th of July here in the U.S., and with me, as always, my friend, my pal, and apparently the only guy who's not going to go storm Moscow, Mr. Joe Pulizzi. How are you, my friend?
God, that was crazy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
All I got were all these notes on my phone that said Putin's losing control, and then of course you had that mixed with the whole Titanic sub thing, which is horrible. It was just a strange. It was a strange news week.
It was a
which
really
is probably
weird week.
is probably perfect for not doing news this week. Actually,
yeah, it's probably. I mean. It's definitely a slow news week as we lead up into the holiday. And of course, nobody likes to release news in the same week that is my birthday because
that's right.
That just takes everything. But it was a weird week. The whole submarine thing and then the whole craziness that is happening in Russia right now with that guy. And it's like if this was a Hollywood movie, you wouldn't actually even believe it. It's just crazy.
Unbelievable. Well, it's also unbelievable. In the same week is your birthday, and of course I have my 25th anniversary. I never realized how close your birthday and my anniversary was, but it's just a wonderful week. It's just a simply outstanding week. So happy birthday.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Any deep thoughts that you? I know we're going to add our own marketing and media deep thoughts, but are you? Is this a big year for you? I mean, you don't have to say how old you are, but is this a big year? Are you changing anything? Are you thinking about life in a different way? Like what's going on with Robert?
Here's what I will tell you. I will tell you it is not a big number. Certainly, it doesn't have a 5 or a 0 to it. It's right in the middle.
It's not like me having a meltdown.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a month ago.
Here's what I'll say is that it's 57. And so it's a little weird to be, I don't know why the number 57 feels so weird to me, but it does for whatever reason. I don't feel like what I think of when I think of 57. My body doesn't feel that way. My brain absolutely doesn't feel that way. So it's a little like, okay, it's 57, right?
No big deal.
It's a little like that. I'm always glad to hang out and have a little celebration. And the fact that my birthday always happens at this time of year that leads usually right into the 4th of July holiday is sort of always been a neat thing for me because I get kind of about a week of just sort of taking some time off, right? Because it's like my birthday and then it's usually either on the weekend or right around. I mean, it's always, that proximity to July 4th. So, this year it's a little weird because July 4th falls on a Tuesday, so it's going to be like the weekend, and then there's like a Monday, and then there's July 4th, and will anybody be working Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of next week? Probably not. So,
no, I don't think so. You get a lot of time. The way that it's ending up this year, I mean, people are really going to celebrate your birthday. I guess what I was going to ask you, not that I wanted to put you on the spot, but now that you're beyond 55, 56, still 55, but 57, 57.
Yeah,
you round that
Heinz
up.
57. Heinz 57. I'm
Heinz 57, but now you're starting to think of I'm almost 60. Not that I want to put that in your head, but
thank you.
I wanted to put that in your head.
That.
I wanted you to. Is that
because I appreciate that?
It's not for me. Like for me, 49, no big deal. 50, huge deal. But I've heard with some people, it's like the number itself, the 50. The 55, the 60 aren't the big ones. It's the leading up to. What do you say to that, Robert?
It's the, well, I'm not sure what to say to that, actually. After that lead up, other than the fact to say, it doesn't feel like a lead up to 60, right? Maybe I'll feel differently next year or the year after as I get closer to it. But right now, I feel, I'll put it this way, I feel as far away from 60 right now as I have ever, right?
So yeah,
in
it's
other words, it doesn't
big deal.
feel any closer to 60 right now. Not that 60 is a bad thing.
I don't. Well, of course, I'm around 50 and 60-year-olds all the time now. But when I was younger and my parents were that age, they seemed very old to me.
Right.
Now I
Right.
don't. I don't. I mean, we've been doing this for 10 years, and it's almost like we're in stasis.
Yeah.
We just keep doing the same show
That's right.
380 times.
That's right.
So time has literally stopped.
That's right.
For us.
That's why we do this, really, is because we're still just two young chuckleheads trying to figure shit out. So
Well, I like it when somebody listens to the first couple episodes and they listen to episode 380. They're like, it's the same thing. I'm like, yes, it's the same thing. That's exactly the point. And you got it
changed
quicker than most.
That is correct.
Literally no value is being added over the past 10 years. So that's
right.
Nice.
We've gotten snarkier. That's the only thing. Age has made us snarkier. That is the
you know
only
what
thing.
I was thinking about this the other day. It's like, what's the biggest difference? I think the previous episodes, like let's go back to 2013 and 14. I think we were actually trying to deliver value. I think that's the difference.
We did well. I would say this. We definitely off. And this is something that we learned. Actually, somebody asked me this the other day. They were asking about their podcast. They were saying, hey, trying to figure out the right show flow and segmentation for our new podcast, and it's a business podcast and all of that.
Yeah.
And my piece of advice, and I believe this, was people tune into you more. And I think we've learned this, although interestingly, today will be a little bit, our special episodes are usually a little bit of a stray from this, but not terribly so. But I said, don't focus in on making it practical, right? Don't make sort of like the step one, go do this, step two, go do that. It's not an instructional, right? People don't typically tune into these podcasts to get some sort of instructional idea. Save that for your class, save that for your online classroom or your workshop or whatever it is. A podcast should be, number one, entertaining. Number two, conversational. And number three, very much structured like a show. It should be interesting to listen to. And so if you focus there, you really don't end up with a lot of practical takeaways, but you do end up with a lot of goodness. You end up with a lot of like, the feedback we typically hear on this from this show is, and I mean this earnestly now, I don't mean the sort of silly joking that we do about this, but the typical feedback we hear is they keep me up with the trends, which is fantastic feedback. Love that feedback, because that's what we're doing. We're just as my wife and I have this word for it. We call it chatterwalking, which is basically when you sort of chatter at each other and just, you're just chatterwalking. You're walking and you're chattering and you're talking and, you're not really saying a lot, but you are actually relaying, a good, entertaining time. So, yeah.
But it's interesting you say that, because I got together with we've got our group of friends, 4 couples, and we get together. And when we haven't gotten together for a while, we share a lot of news that each other has, whether it's personal news about the people that we know or news in the world. And it's sort of how we catch up on what the heck is going on with everything. And that's sort of what you and I do. We talk, and there's things that you share with me that I have never heard of. And I don't think if it's gone the other way around. But anyways, I learn from you, and then I comment on it like I don't know what's going on. And it works. It
does work. It does work.
But I don't know if it would work for a lot. I think that we've done a better job of keeping. I mean, I'm just looking at stats here. We have a very loyal group of listeners, and we have for a long time.
Nice.
They are so wonderful. Nice. Our fans are the best. But I think it's hard. It might be harder for newer listeners to get in, because here we are, we're 9 minutes in or whatever, and we still haven't talked about anything constructive. Maybe not ever in the show, but generally we don't get to anything until the 10 to 12 to 14 minute mark. And if you're a new listener, that might be like, what is this a thing? Like, this old marketing? Are we going to learn anything marketing? And
they're like 10 minutes in going,
no, probably not.
They're like 10 minutes in going, huh?
That's what this is.
Yeah, this sucks.
this is what happened when you're sort of out. We're out to graze now. We've been in marketing so long that we're basically chewing on the grass and just we're doing whatever. Right?
So remember last week, I did get, by the way, a wonderful note from an audience member on a new tagline.
Really?
I'll bring it up here in a second. I forgot to have it up on my screen, but I'll bring it up on my. It's pretty good. But chewing our cud, that could be that might be our. They chew the cud.
Chewing on the cud that is old marketing.
This old marketing.
This
chew the cud.
And old and marketing. Anyway, so what is our okay? Do you want to look at the tagline or do you want to go to the show stuff?
No, I want to go to the show.
Okay. We'll do the tagline thing later. Yeah. You had this great idea. So what are we doing? What's our show?
So as we go to air, as it were, it will be June 30th, and that is exactly the halfway mark of 2023. We are end of second quarter, beginning third and fourth quarter. We're halfway through the year, almost to the day. And I wanted to sort of have a discussion about the things that we should be paying attention to. What strikes me so often is, and this has been especially true this year, has been the number of pontifications and predictions and warnings that we had toward the end of last year and the early part of this year that have just been woefully wrong, right? Just so much has happened. The metaverse that we were so, talking about and then just didn't. Crypto, the AI, we're talking about the economy and the recession. I love the saying, the folks that are predicting recessions have predicted the last 37 of the last 4 recessions. So it seems like every day there's so much stuff. And even to our point where we were just talking about, right, with the Russia thing and the submarine thing, and like, what should we be paying attention to? Like, as marketers, as content creators, as brand, as folks who focus on creating stories and learning and thought leadership for our various audiences, what are the things that we should be paying attention to as we kick off the back half of 2023? So what I charged you to do, and I did myself, was to come up with 4 things that we should be paying attention to, and we'll each have a hot take on each topic that we should be paying attention to as in this audience, and then one thing that nobody's paying attention to that we should be paying attention to.
Ooh, that one I like.
Yeah.
Not that I don't like the other ones. We're going to have a fine conversation, but it's
going to be great. Yeah. So that'll replace our rants and raves section, that one last one there. And hopefully we'll have a nice little show about it. So
wouldn't it be nice? It would be nice if it was a good show.
It would be nice if it was a good show for a change.
All right. Are you starting or
why don't you start? You
want
can
me
start.
to start? Okay. Yeah. Well, let me bring up my handy dandy show notes.
Would you like me to start because you're not prepared?
No, I got it. I got it. No,
all right.
Here's mine. I just have to look at see what was in what order. I mean, I have all kinds of bad takes. All right,
that's right.
So the number one thing, and this is, I've had a lot of conversations with individual creators about this, but I think this is relevant to marketers as well. Anybody creating content. I think that we're now at a point, we've been doing this for so long. Content is the thing we create the most of in any organization. It has really gotten out of hand. It's unwieldy. And I think that if you're an organization that's been doing this for a while, you just have a ton of content that's literally doing nothing for your customers or for your business. It is a big problem. So what I'm talking to a lot of creators about is this, almost like a reset. You do a mini audit and then a reset and say, okay, we are doing, if you look at CMI research, it's a great one. It'll say the average enterprise creates and distributes content 13 to 16 different ways per audience, which is almost improbable that you'll get anything done doing so many things, because you can't be great at 13 to 16 different things. You can maybe be great at a couple. So it's the idea of too much content and not enough activation. So I'm seeing 2 things. It's maybe we shouldn't be doing all these other things, and we've talked about that before. Bringing it down and doing 2 or 3 or 5 things really, really well. But also what you're seeing is more activation. And LinkedIn's a really good example of this. When I talk to people that are saying, hey, I'm doing all the things on LinkedIn. I'm posting every day. I feel that I've got differentiated content, but nothing's working. And I always say, well, are you in the right communities? Are you commenting on other people's posts? Do you have your list of 10 to 20 people that you should be commenting on a regular basis? And to a T, Robert, it's always, no, I don't make time for that. Well, okay, well, it's not going to change. So content is not enough. So it's that we've got too much content and not enough activation. And I think I'm hopefully, fingers crossed, we're starting to see more of that be taken seriously in brands as well as individual creators.
I think it's an important point. I love it. I love that as a take. It feeds right into mine, by the way, which I'll talk about in just a second. But it's this, one of the things that I think has been illustrated by the decline, let's say, of the number of social networks is, and truly the focus in for marketing people into LinkedIn, which we've seen, as Twitter has sort of become something different, as Facebook has become something different, as Instagram, maybe there's some crossover with Instagram here. Instagram has sort of, I would say, widened their remit, as it were, and LinkedIn has as well. But really the focus on LinkedIn, for me anyway, I would say it has really demonstrated and illustrated to me, because I rarely post on Facebook anymore. I really just don't. I'm a consumer of Facebook, and I love seeing what my friends are up to. And Facebook has always been a personal thing for me, not a business thing. I've never put really any business stuff on Facebook at all, nor do I on Instagram really. But LinkedIn is really the only one where I focus on content. And I look at engaging with LinkedIn as part of my job, right? And so, to your point, commenting on posts, meaningful comments, not just me too, but actually, here's what I think about, and thank you, and congratulations on your new role. I'm sure you'll do great. Really interacting with LinkedIn, but then also obviously posting more thoughtful things, and really engaging with the platform. And it's been rewarding for me on the backside of things. It's been it's much more. I'm getting lots of ideas from LinkedIn. I see lots of good content, and my feed is better, and all those kinds of things. And I think it's a great point too. By the way, the reduction of the amount of content, but the higher quality sort of focus that I'm seeing for brands that are focused in on successful content marketing, right? Where quality and quantity is finally having its day, and that tension has existed for as long as you and I have been doing this, and the quality argument really seems to be having its way right now.
I think quality always trumps quantity every time. Now you
100%.
can make. I see it. I have these conversations all the time with, especially on LinkedIn. It's like, oh no, it's you really have to have both. And yes, you have to. I mean, first of all, you have quality non-starter. Then you can figure out from your quantity standpoint. But I love what Andy Crestodina did years ago. And he said, I'm going to post a amazing blog post every 2 weeks. That's what I feel I can do amazingly well with the resources I have right now. And he's done great. He's increased his SEO. He's increased his subscribers. If you looked at his LinkedIn newsletter, it's done amazingly well. So it's just interesting that works first and foremost. And I love Jay Klaus said this at CEX. He said, okay, well, if what's easier to get A's in 5 subjects or an A+ in 1?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the type of thinking we should go with, and saying no. I mean, strategy is about saying no. We've said that on the show many, many times. And sometimes you have to say no and say, it's not going to be worth it right now to do the podcast or the video series or whatever it is, because
that's right.
We have this opportunity over here. Let's take advantage of it. Let's activate it. Let's move forward. What's your first one? What do you got?
It's a great segue, because and by the way, we didn't plan any of this. We didn't plan the order of any of this, but yours is a great segue, because of course I start with generative AI in content. And I know that's kind of a no duh. We all ought to be paying attention to it, but let me get a little more specific. And what I mean by that is, right now, you can't throw a rock and not hit a social post that basically is telling you have to get good at generative AI.
Tell me about it.
I mean, it's just everywhere, right? I mean, everybody's got a class now, and there's, templates you can buy, and there's, I mean, there is definitely a get rich quick scheme happening from coaches and consultants and all of that are out there saying, basically, we'll help you get good at AI. And my question, and by the way, I've consumed a number of these, is what does that even mean? Like, what does it mean to get good at AI? Does it mean getting good at prompts? Almost certainly not. Prompts will be one of those things, as we've talked about on this show before, that at some point AI will create for us. Like, it's going to help us make it easier to create prompts. There are already
these prompts. Yeah.
Yeah. There are already software solutions out there, by the way, that you can purchase that will help you construct great prompts, right? That basically will write you tell it what you want, and it will then, here's how you should prompt, right? So I think prompts is a commodity, ultimately, that becomes easier and easier over time. I don't think it's necessarily learning how to type it into ChatGPT or the solutions. I don't think it's going to be the proprietary interfaces that some of these solutions will ultimately have, nor do I think it's about finding the right way to ask DALL-E or Midjourney for an image. I don't know what get good at AI will ultimately mean, but what I think it means, and where I think we should be paying attention, this is my experience, because I have been every few days, I make time, I schedule time that I actually interact both with a tool that I've purchased and then also with ChatGPT, just learning how to integrate it into my workflow. That, I think, is the key part of this, is like, I already have a workflow for creating stuff. I have a weekly column. I have a lovely weekly podcast that I do. I have other writing assignments as necessary. I'm looking at how do I integrate AI into my workflow about quality, because once I figure that out, what I have learned, my key is all of this, and this is where it feeds into what you've said so well, is that creating content is kind of the least interesting thing that it's really not that interesting. Like, having it write original content for me, I don't find that particularly.
So you're saying the AI is the least interesting thing that it does? Yes.
Creating content is the least interesting thing that generative AI does, I think. What it does interesting, though, is that it takes my thinking, my raw thinking that I just spill out into a Word document or a Google Doc or something like that, put it in there, press on that thinking, really work it, have it work like a research assistant with me, reformatting, structuring, telling me things I'm not thinking about, all those kinds of things, telling me, what I'm not covering that I should be covering, integrating it into my workflow, not as a content output assistant, but rather as a thinking assistant to help me think more logically and find patterns that I don't see and uncover things, has been great. And what that has done it has actually enabled me to create fewer, better things. And I think that's the really thing that we should. So when I think about getting good now at AI, that to me feels better. In other words, it's a little bit like not getting to know Photoshop because you can actually, put in a photo and auto-magically take away the background. That's not getting good at Photoshop. What getting good at Photoshop means is, how do you take that painting that you made and actually start to use a tablet to start to paint things and create original creations in Photoshop and take advantage of the ways that the sophisticated features that it has back and forth to help you implement and enhance your art. That's getting good at Photoshop. That's how I think of getting good at AI, and the thing that I think we should be paying attention to.
No, I love all the points. I agree with what you're saying. I saw a post, I can't remember who had the post, but basically said that using AI and metaverse in our marketing terminology will not exist in the next couple of years. We will be talking about it in some other way. And I tend to agree with that. I almost feel like I want to be up to date on the AI stuff enough, just as I'm like, there's a rope and I'm holding on to the boat. And I'm just going to drag on the thing as long as I can. And then it's going to slow up enough I can actually get in the boat. I just want to stick around long enough until it's a part of everything that we do.
That's right.
So it's either a really scary time to be a content creator and a marketer, or it's the most exciting time we've ever had because it's going to change so rapidly. But I don't know. It's almost like, oh, remember when marketing automation came along? We're like, oh my God, all these things we won't have to do anymore. And then we realize, oh my God, well, no. Most people only use about 2% of any marketing automation tools capacities anyways. So we picked up a couple new things along the way. So that's where I don't know where we're going. Is it a whole new thing? We're going to think about it differently, or is this just going to be baked into what we're doing right now and it's not going to make a huge impact?
I agree with that. I think, it becomes very much like, and I can remember the days back in 99, 2000, 2001, when somebody said, well, where's the website I should go to? Well, you would go, well, it's http://www.joepulizzi.com. And people will go, okay, great. Thank you. And now it's just like, where do I go? Oh, you just go to joepulizzi.com. It's fine.
Yeah.
There's no www. Nobody assumes you need to say that anymore. And in fact, you don't for the most part. You never say HTTP. Most people don't even know what HTTP stands for, right? You certainly don't, think about things like FTP or other transfer protocols. It's just part of the way that you live and breathe on the internet.
Or I mean, and I've had some presentations recently where I don't even put my website anymore.
Right.
I just say, just Google me. Just, whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
You'll find me.
Right.
Type Joe Pulizzi into anything.
That's
Hopefully,
right.
if I've done the work, I will show
right.
up. The correct one with the wonderful blue check that's meaningless now on Twitter. Anyways,
anyway, we should probably get to the second one because maybe we didn't think this through with how many we should have.
Yes, well, we'll be more precise on these next ones. So my second one is it's a little bit qualitative, so this is my own opinion about what I'm seeing, but there was a time about 2 years ago where there were some great newsletters in our industry, and they were much differentiated, and now there's so many newsletters. There's a lot of the same going on.
Yeah.
And I think that's only going to get worse. I think that we caught onto this email newsletter bug, and everybody, including me and you, is, oh my God, what a great opportunity. And people are still going to their inbox and doing it. And I think people got the note that, hey, I've got to step up my email newsletter game. Well, I think we've got to do it again. I think there's so much clutter around email that I think we need to take a fresh look at our newsletters. Every organization does. And if you just have your basic, here's our company update, and here's the 5 things that we think are interesting, and abstract link and whatever, and you're getting a 15% open rate, you're in big trouble. Like you have to figure that in the next 6 to 9 months, that thing is not going to be working for you anymore. You're probably seeing a lot of opt-outs. You're probably seeing more and more people not even open that thing. So you have to create a real content experience that is truly differentiated in the email format. I mean, I know we're talking about this. We want everything to be differentiated. We want to create an amazing experience for our customers with anything we do in any medium. But for some reason right now, I think that email has got a little bit crazy with so many people starting their own email newsletter that we've got to rethink. We're doing it with what we're doing at the Tilt. I know I'm doing it with my individual newsletter. I'm like, what do we need to do to make sure that this thing is helpful and resonates with people, and we're telling a story that makes a difference. So that was my take. I
think it's a great one. I think it's a great. I mean, having an email newsletter is a bit like having a blog back in 2011, right? 2012, right?
Everybody had one.
Everybody had a blog, right? You had a blogger, or you had what was the other one that was so huge that everybody had?
TypePad.
TypePad. Right?
I had I started with a
Seth
TypePad
Godin
blog.
is
I think
still on
Seth
TypePad.
Godin is like the only one that still has a TypePad blog.
Yeah. And I think it's because it's a custom TypePad blog, and so I don't think he can move from it.
You've been there recently? Not a lot of custom going on.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah.
Yeah. So so I think that's a great one, and I think the goodwill rise, as did with blogs, right? Ultimately there will be a consolidation in the marketplace, and I think we will start to see, the good newsletters survive and the not so good ones not. So I think I like it. I like it. What I worry a little bit about is the disappearance of the inbox as sort of a paradigm, right? So with the idea of Slack and some of the more, Discord, certainly much to a much lesser degree, but other sort of messaging aggregators that sort of take everything you do and sort of put it together, whether it's text, email,
Yeah.
instant message, whatever those things are. I wonder a bit about a evolution of what we now think of as the inbox. And, speaking of age, I wonder if that's us in some degree. And it'll be interesting to see what emerges over the next couple of years to say, how do you create addressability outside the bounds of email, right? Outside the bounds of email or a phone number, how do you create addressability? And it'll be interesting.
Yeah, that's true. That's the question that concerns me.
Yeah.
Where you say you've got email, you've got people are getting very creative around phone number, and of course, we're getting spammed an incredible amount.
That's right.
So not that our phone number's out there, but you create a membership group, and we tried to do it, of course, through a token and Discord, and that didn't work out so well. So you're like, okay, well, that battle is going to go on for the next couple of years. It'll be interesting to see where that goes.
And you have to ask yourself, what's the next standard, right? What's the next global standard? Phone number is certainly one. Email address is another. What becomes the next standard for this represents me on the internet? Yeah. And I think it's a fascinating question.
All right. Hey, well, just so you know, while you go and you do your second one, I'm going to mute my mic a little bit because we're getting a huge thunderstorm.
Oh, fantastic.
Have you heard any of it?
No.
The camera just shook about 2 minutes ago because I thought we got hit, but I'm okay.
All right. Well, I'm glad you're okay.
We're good. Anyway, just in case, if I mute for a little bit, it's because it's raining so hard I can't hear anything. So and I want people to hear you because your message is important.
Indeed. Well, okay. Not sure where to take that, but okay. So my next one is what I'm calling the new website, and this goes right to what I was just talking about. This idea of what are the new standards, right? What are the new standards for email? What are the new standards for phone number, for addressability, for all of the things that we sort of classically think about? If you think about it, the website. We haven't evolved really, truly, the website since its origins, right? Since its origin story in 1998 or 1999 or whenever you had your first sort of big, meaningful website that represented you or your brand or your company on the web. And it's still literally a hierarchical display of page-level content that people navigate through. And blogs changed it somewhat, where we sort of took the idea of content in reverse chronological order and put it on, and sort of that became a website for many people. And these days, content hubs are starting to become sort of more, sort of the idea of the hub and spoke content hubs or those kinds of things that are creating expertise around a topic. And I'm as guilty as anyone here because I'm still trying to figure this out. And it's something that I'm really paying attention to is, what is the website of 2024? Like, what should we be thinking about? In other words, how do you organize things outside of a hierarchical, menu-driven idea that is smarter, better, a better user experience for getting to content, useful, valuable content, rather than looking at it from a SEO, like here's your blog post that you just posted and now you have to have a right rail because you've got to have navigation to the rest of the site, or the idea of a corporate website where you've got about us and about our team and about our products and about sort of the more online brochure thing that has been classically structured for so long. The new website, what does the new website look like? And I've been sketching some things that I think I've been out there looking around. There's some fascinating examples of this where it is really built around, the whole idea of headless is a really interesting thing to me, where you've got just a big bucket of content structured, and you can start to build interfaces based on targeting, based on personal preference, based on a number of attributes that you could assign, that everybody gets something a little different, or everybody gets something a little more optimized to their idea, not only just from a content perspective, but also from a design perspective as well. And those paradigms, I think, really are ripe for shift, and it's something that I'm thinking a lot about, and certainly I know some marketing folks are also thinking about, especially as we start moving to a more AI generated search paradigm, which is when you start thinking about it. I saw a fascinating question on social media. It was on LinkedIn actually, which is how do we start making sure that we're in the answers that AI provides, right? That's the new SEO question. It's like, how do you start making sure that your answer, your content, your point of view is the one that's represented when someone asks AI a question? And man, do I think those are fascinating, big, hard questions to figure out.
What do you think of the link in bio where you go to, let's say your website is, here's all the things I do? Is that a short-lived phenomena?
I do think it's I've always thought it was a hack.
Okay.
It's a hack because and it was all born out of the fact that you couldn't put multiple links into a bio, right? Into Instagram or
Instagram, which I think Instagram now lets you do 2, if I'm not mistaken. But
yeah, but it's either way, it's literally, how do I make a landing page out of my where I can not only point you to my website, but I can also point you to my store, and I can point you to it's like if I'm in it's always like social media where it's like, hey, link in bio to the this deal or this particular thing, and then you click on it and you got to go find it and search for it, which is suboptimal. It's a total hack. I've always thought link in bio was a hack.
But you still believe that the website is more critical than ever?
I think web content is more critical than ever. Yeah, I'm less convinced that websites are critical, but I'm more convinced than ever that web content. And we used to have this fascinating debate. Not a debate, more of a lunchtime conversation. So, for those who don't know, my pedigree from a product development perspective was in web content management way back in the day, going back to 99 all the way through 2008. That was the company that I was a CMO for. We used to have these fascinating discussions about the future of web content and websites, because the paradigm, the idea of a website is so old and so it was never good, right? It was never a great way to actually organize content for an interactive experience. It was always sort of borrowing from old paradigms like magazines and newspapers and things we could sort of wrap our heads around, hierarchical folders that were, presented in a sort of a top-down, way that looks more like an org chart than it does a particular way that you actually consume content. And I just think that we used to talk about this idea of how web content just out there in some way, but then presented in organized fashion based on what you want to see. So it might be literally a website, just for lack of a better term, that not only features your web content, but also features your competitors and, people in, like-minded things. So it's sort of like magazines built on the fly or newspapers built on the fly and all these kinds of things where we started to talk about the flow and how content is presented on the web. I think web content is definitely something that we should be paying attention to, and websites, I don't know. I'm convinced that they're not long for this world, but I don't know what replaces them yet.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, when you find that out, would you let me know? I'm trying.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to
I'm looking at redoing to.
Well, I'm looking at redoing JoePulizzi.com as well. Right. I'm just trying to figure out, and I'm looking.
It's a great example, right?
What other people are doing, and I'm like, I don't know. Of course, it's the same thing as everybody else about Joe, and here's my speaking page, and here's the podcast, and here's my next project, and here's the nonprofit. But
what about so just to draw that to its ultimate conclusion? What about a technology where, let's pretend for a moment that this was possible, because right now it's not, because content is so weirdly structured across the web. Like there's so many different structures for it. It would be very, very difficult to pull this off. But imagine you said, hey, I want people, when they go to joepulizzi.com, to basically pull my best content from wherever it lives on the web, right? So the front page is my favorite YouTube videos that are out there, the article that was written about me 10 years ago, my book in Kindle format or in some sort of structured format. Basically it pulls it all together using AI or using some sort of technology to do that in a smart way, because it knows what I want to know. If I hit joepulizzi.com and it pulls that information that's the most relevant and interesting to me, for why I'm hitting your content. Think about that for a second, where you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is make sure that your content is out there in the world.
Sure.
And it basically pulls together. And now that's Google, right? Ultimately, when you think about it, that's what Google's trying to do with things like Knowledge Graph, et cetera. But thinking about that as a unique capability to us is really what I'm interested in.
But that's a great point, because that's where I think the special sauce of AI is going to come in, is when it knows all of your needs, wants, behaviors, the things that you'd like to see, how you like to see them, and you match that up with the content that's out there. And that's where you get the Joaquin Phoenix, her mashup of OS.
Right.
So I don't think we're that far from that, but they have to take what we like and how we like to get content, all the stuff that makes us, and then match that up with web content, and then you've got something. And everyone
100%.
has that means that AI is a different thing for every person, which is the way it should be.
100%.
It's also
100%.
scary as hell.
Yeah,
but
I mean that's where
story.
I've been fascinated with this idea of individual learning models, right? So the Joe Pulizzi LLM, right? The Robert Rose LLM, right? Where you could use not somebody, company, but basically it becomes your little package of usefulness, right? But it contains all the things that you've created, so that it becomes a smarter database, for, again, lack of a better terminology, of ability to pull you and represent you on the web.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Number 3.
All right, we're gonna have time to cover one more. Let's do one more.
Okay.
Each,
I get to pick one of
your final two there. Yeah. So pick one of your final two.
Okay. I'm gonna go with the video product. All right. Everybody who's listened to this show knows I got to hang up about TikTok. I'm concerned about that whole thing, but I'm not going to get into that. I believe if you are a serious content creator, you absolutely need a quality, consistent video product, which is one of the reasons why I really enjoy what we've done here with This Old Marketing, and because now I see the possibilities of what we can do and how you can cut this thing up a bunch of different ways so that people are more aware of what we do with This Old Marketing. Yeah. There was a really interesting article on Published Press, and they were talking about how every Mr. Beast has become Mr. Beast because of his challenge content. Like, I can have 10 people do this, build this thing in less than 5 hours, and whatever, or whoever can meet this Squid Games thing. Or he started out with the whole thing about counting from 0 to 100,000 or whatever he did, and it sort of made everybody calls it the Mr. Beastification of video. So you got all these people doing this. But now I think we're at a point where there's opportunities for some amazing storytelling. I've seen some incredible documentaries coming from individual creators. We have all these tools. And if you're a creator and if you're a marketer, and you want, to your point, the last point, if you want to be found, I think in order to make this whole system work for us and to be discovered, you need an amazing piece of video content. I don't know if I felt that way a year ago. I thought that, and I still do. I still feel that if you can double down on one and be great at just a podcast or just a newsletter, go do that. But once you get toward that level of, I built my minimum viable audience, do you need a video product? I believe that answer is yes. I don't believe that's necessarily on TikTok. I don't know where that is. I don't know where the story needs to reside, but I think you need to have something, and it's not necessarily what Mr. Beast does, or it's not necessarily what Casey Neistat did years ago. It's whatever you bring your secret sauce to, your story that's differentiated in some way, but do that on a long-term basis. The opportunity then is that most people stop. If we're in a meeting and somebody says, well, if we go and we launch this video thing on YouTube, whatever it is, how will we fail? 99% of the chances you quit too early before gate any residents. So that's my take. I just don't know. I believe that in my bones that we are set up for video. I believe that's the way that should be our first inclination, but I don't know where that should live. Maybe it doesn't matter. in the near future. As long as it's out there, people will find it. I don't
Well,
know.
well, that goes back to what I was just talking about, right? With this whole idea of, where does it, where's the optimal place for it to live
Yeah.
and be found and be discovered. So, yeah, I'm 100% with you. I think video, what we've discovered through podcasting is that audio has a different relationship with people and audiences than text does. I mean, you and I hear about it all the time with regard to the podcast. There's a level of intimacy, and, I don't mean that in a weird way, but there's a level of intimacy with being in people's ears that is different than being, reading their posts or reading their papers or reading their emails. And it's just different. And there's a different level of emotional engagement with video than there is with audio. And so I think it's true that you need to hit on all of those emotional engagement buttons, as it were, which video does very well because you can do both. You can do audio and video, but there's just that's an extra layer of engagement with an audience that you don't have with other formats. And I think that's why it's taking off so much. And it's always the question of, the classic is you've got a face for radio, right? And people don't like to be on video because they don't like the way they look, or they don't like the way that they, particularly look on video, all those kinds of things. And I think, to your point, it is literally making it's visual storytelling, really, more than anything else. The talking head thing right now is such a huge piece of what we do, but the question becomes is how does video start to evolve as well? How does video and the way that we deliver stories and content through video evolve, just like we have to evolve the web, just like we're going to evolve audio? For so long, it's like a podcast. What is a podcast? Well, it's a host that interviews somebody. 97.8% of podcasts are basically, a host that's interviewing somebody.
Yep.
Or two people, right, interviewing somebody. They're interview shows. Why? Because that's talk radio. That's what talk radio has been for forever, and it's what the news is. It's what all these things are. And so the question is, how do you start to evolve that? And we start to see it with great podcasts, that NPR puts out with the storytelling, and they're sort of pushing the limits of audio. And now I think we're going to start to see the same pushing on the walls of video to sort of to deliver better storytelling. And that's,
I think video is great for the discoverability of audio. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm sure you've seen on your feeds, Joe Rogan is a great example. I think most people find Joe Rogan's podcast through his video clips.
Yeah.
And so it's just interesting the way that the behavior, how, you could build it. Oh, how do you build a loyal audience member? And you kind of go through and you feel, where are all those little discoverability nodes that you're putting out there? And a lot of that is video. And then you get them into something that you can build that long-term relationship with, which I think can be a podcast, can be an email newsletter.
That's right.
But video is a core part of making that happen. So, what's your last one?
Okay, I'm the thing I'm going to end with before we get to our final one, which is the what no one's paying attention to that we should be paying attention to. So my final sort of one in the other category is the job market, and it's interesting to me because I think I hear so many predictions and everything about where the economy is right now. And I was listening to this fascinating. I don't know if you heard it, Professor Galloway interviewing Kai Ryssdal. Kai Ryssdal, by the way, I
haven't heard it yet. No.
Oh, Kai Ryssdal is just fantastic. He's so good and smart and insightful, and it's a fantastic interview, by the way. Highly recommended. Professor Galloway interviewing Kai Ryssdal on his show, on his I don't know. He's got like 9 shows now, so I don't remember which one it is, but basically his podcast. And he was talking about the idea of how frustrating this economy is right now because we can't really predict anything because everything seems to be flying in the face of everything. And to me, it all is around this job market, where we continue to defy gravity with I was reading an article just the other day that talked about how graduates from school, and this is what's got me top of mind, is that people are graduating college right now and are ready for summer, and then they're going to be coming into the fall. Our new workforce is going to be coming in the fall. And it's the strongest job market in 70 years, says this article. But of course, that's not for everybody, right? Because I know plenty of people, and again, speaking of age, who are my age or thereabouts, who are really struggling to find work right now.
Yeah.
And there's definitely an ageism thing happening. There's definitely a lot of talent out there. There are so many posts that you see right now about people getting ghosted in job interviews, about how job interviews, I saw one post where the woman posted 267 applications, 265 response emails, 2 ghosted. Of the 265 email responses, 10 interviews, 5 with follow-ups, 2 with actual meetings, and finally got a job, right? It was like literally, it
just sounds horrible.
In my head, I go, I can't even imagine how difficult that is, right? How hard that is these days. We tend to think of everything being so easy with search and LinkedIn and so, but it's really hard. So getting good at that, getting good at and paying attention to where the job market is right now and how you're positioning yourself for work and how you're positioned. And I don't care who you are, if you're a solopreneur, if you're a content creator, if how you're positioning yourself for work is all the key, right? So yeah, that's paying attention to that is critical.
Oh, it's so interesting to see where it's funny because we never really did have the recession we were supposed to have. And it's challenging out there. I guess I would say diversification of revenue is so important. And this doesn't mean just content creators that, content entrepreneurs that have this as a business. We sort of tout that, right? You focus on singular channels so you can build an audience, but you want as many revenue opportunities as possible, 6, 7, 8 different ways. Whether it's donations, whether it's sponsorship, whether it's events, whether it's paid subscriptions, whatever, you want that to happen. The same thing you want for whoever you are.
Yeah.
Whether you're 50 years old or whether you're coming out of college going in and finding that job. Like, what are the different things that you can do, no matter if it's just a little money on a regular basis, that you can do that to set yourself up and protect yourself, de-risk yourself
exactly right.
against the environment out there, because it is nuts. And I guess it's almost a reframing of what a job is.
Yeah, really, truly.
It's
the whole idea of fractional
I don't even know,
is a huge thing, right?
We're crazy, but I think we're making foolish decisions if we think that the future will be the 40-hour work week at a corporation. I think we have to think more out of the box now, especially when I'm speaking specifically for knowledge workers.
Yeah.
So there you go. Good point.
Yeah, there you have it. All right. Well, okay. So what we're talking about now is, of course, our last piece. But before we get to that last piece where we talk about what people aren't paying attention to that they should be paying attention to, we want to talk to you about thisoldmarketing.com. Basically, our site, our little home on the internet. It's still a very hierarchical site. So yeah, it's a classic website. But it's where we've gathered everything. It's where you've gathered the idea of all the wonderful show notes that you can see of all the previous episodes. You can listen to previous episodes. You can also send us a voicemail. It's a fantastic place to send us a voicemail for questions, comments, anything like that. We want those so that we can feature you on the show, our wonderful listeners. And, of course, story ideas. We need those story ideas for anything you want us to cover on the show when we do a regular news program and all the things that we bring to you because we care about what you think. So get on over there, won't you, thisoldmarketing.com. You can subscribe to Joe's Tilt newsletter. You can subscribe to my little experience advisors. We just moved to Substack, by the way. Yay, big move this week.
Did not know this.
Nice. We moved to Substack. We're now out of the whole MailChimp thing. Substack, have to say, rave reviews. They're not paying for me to say anything. I'm just saying I had to learn Substack over the last week and a half, and it's been so easy and so wonderful to learn. So big ideas there. All right. So quickly, what are you thinking about? So what's the one thing that people aren't talking about that we should be talking about?
I've said this before, Robert, and I'm going to say it again. Nobody in their right mind right now would consider doing a consistent print publication. And I think that's the opportunity.
Yeah.
And I'm amazed when I get the mail 6 out of 7 days here in the United States, and there's nothing good, and yet it's still going to get delivered. And the opportunities that you have, no matter what size company, to deliver something amazing, when it is so difficult right now to build an audience online. It takes a long time, consistent delivery, something truly differentiated, something really valuable to an audience. You can do that and deliver it via print. And I don't think anybody right now, Robert, in any marketing organization is thinking about, oh yeah, we should do a print magazine. And I
Right.
really do think that, granted, it does cost a little bit of money. But there are ways around that, and I'm not going to get into that today. But I really do think that it is a huge opportunity, especially if you're targeting really core decision makers about a certain topic, and you want to reach them and get around all the other gatekeepers online, where they're in their Facebooks and the Instagrams and TikToks and email and whatever. And you're like, I can't get you're sending out ads and you can't get their attention. You know what you will easily get their attention with? If you send them a quality print publication that's relevant to them, you will immediately get them. And I just don't see enough creators thinking about that opportunity. And I think it's still going to happen. I think that in this coming Christmas season, holiday season, I think you're going to see the Walmarts, the Amazons, the Legos, the Red Bulls ramp it up big time with print because they see this opportunity.
Yeah.
So, but not many
I
are
agree.
thinking about it outside of those groups.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of those things where, we have seen companies do really well with a print magazine right now. And interestingly, much lower in the buyer's journey than previously thought. What we're seeing now is this fascinating trend, very small and few and far between, to your point, something that we should be paying attention to that not a lot of people are. But there's one example of a company that did a very small run print magazine, because you can now do small runs, right? You can do small runs. And basically, the sales team becomes the distribution channel. So it becomes this sort of very beautiful, tactile way for salespeople to have a great conversation with somebody at a trade show or at a meeting, or send it to them personally via mail. Basically make it a very, almost like an old school direct mail piece, but it's a magazine, right? So it's a thought leadership piece to have a discussion about. Just a fascinating way to differentiate yourself.
No, this is back a long time ago, but I used to do work on the magazine for Altair Engineering. Altair is in the computer engineering space, computer software space, and they wanted their sales team to have something that would differentiate them so that they could get a meeting.
Yeah.
And that is exactly the reason why that they created their magazine, Concept to Reality. And it ended up getting more meetings for the salespeople to get into these B2B decision makers. And now Altair is one of the fastest growing companies in the software engineering side. And they've been really, really amazingly successful. And I think one of the reasons is because they looked at it differently. They had a particular problem. We need our B2B salespeople to get these meetings, and they're not getting the meetings. Well, what can we do?
Yeah.
Magazine, get them in the door.
Yep.
And it works. So anyways, whatever. What do you got? What's going on? What's the thing that nobody's talking about on your side?
Right now, what I don't think anybody's talking about, because there's sort of the less, people have been so freaked out about the economy that nobody's thinking about acquisitions at the moment. And I'm fascinated by, I was looking over the weekend, the acquisition sort of venture funding space, the venture funding space for sure, sort of had a peak around the 2017, 2018 mark. And so then it kind of came down in 2019 and of course fell off a cliff in 2020 and 2021 and hasn't really recovered since. It's a tough time to raise money, right? If you're a startup company, especially startup technology company, unless you're an AI. And then of course you're just like, you're trying to sweep money off of your patio, right? But otherwise, if you're not an AI, it's a really tough time to be looking for venture money. And so what I want people to pay attention to is that remember that venture funds are usually they're usually in 5-year tranches. And so we're just coming up now on the sort of 2017, 2018 idea of where those 5-year tranches start to become meaningful, which mean basically a lot of acquisitions tend to happen right when after those peaks, because that's when that's when that startup money starts to become, let's get it out the door, let's get it converted, and you've got a lot of venture people trying to get those acquisitions. And I think we're in a really ripe time for acquisitions and a market consolidation in a lot of areas in the marketing tech space, marketing automation, email, CRM, also customer data platforms, all these kinds of things. So something to pay attention to over the next, I would say, 6 months will be, I believe, kind of a prediction more than a pay attention, but pay attention. We're going to start to see a lot of startups get acquired. I think we're going to see a heavy acquisition season in the fall. And I think it's going to be really interesting for those of us who are thinking about technologies for larger organizations and larger organizations looking to acquire technology, about what it is they should be paying attention to.
And same thing on the content side. We've seen
absolutely.
Boy, a couple of years ago, you were really starting to see that where you had HubSpot. We're buying their media companies, and Salesforce was getting involved, and then it's sort of been quiet. And this stuff is still happening. And a lot of the reasons why it's halted a little bit is because the sponsorship market has just fallen off a cliff.
Yeah.
Like if you were based on ad sales, you're having a really, really tough time. We talked about revenue diversification before. You're having a really tough time. But a lot of those people are setting them up for sale right now. And there's a lot of courting going on that we're not talking about, but we will sooner than later. So I think all of this will come to a head in the next 6, 9, 12 months. So.
Yeah. Fascinating.
There you go. Oh, that was fun.
Well, that was totally fun. Yeah, that was really fun.
Good deal.
Good fun special episode here. So what do you got this week?
We have, leading up to 4th of July, we have a lot of parties that happen, especially on the 4th of July. So we've got, and the weather's been great, except for right now. It's like literally a cat and a dog just hit the roof of my house. So it's raining like crazy. But other than that, I'm going to a wedding in a couple days. So it's just all the summer goodness is coming out. How about you?
There it is.
Got birthday celebrations. You're going to the beach. All that.
Yeah, I'm on a business trip, and then I'm going to the beach for the holiday. So it should be a nice birthday week, and a nice
awesome
way to spend the holiday.
Happy 57.
So, yeah, thank you so very, very much, and thank you all very much for joining us for this wonderful special episode. We'll be back next week with, of course, a regular old news episode. And before we get there, well, just remember, we're going to see you next week. But, before then, it's your story. Tell it well. We're going to see you next week on This Old Marketing.